I'm going to show some pictures first. I was talking with somebody on Facebook named Tammy, and she's a music teacher also. And she was making these mugs to give to her students. Well, I like anything music because I'm a music teacher and always looking for nice gifts. And she was mentioning that she liked this swirl design that she got from the internet, but she was wishing she could find something a little bit different for the cello player that didn't have two parts. She wanted to get rid of some of it. And the viola player, you know, it's really hard to find something for a violist, and because the violist doesn't read the same clef as the violinist. So I was working on her file a little bit just to see what I could do, and then I thought, oh good, well this will help me to show how we do some editing and make the cut. I'll just quickly show you some of the things. This is one idea she had for the violist. The violist uses a different clef, and violinists are very confused by it. I tried to copy this and found out I didn't have the font, so I found a musical font to do the same kind of thing. This was LD Music, which was a free font. And in this file that she sent me, I noticed there's only 4 lines, and musicians know that there are supposed to be 5 lines. So I wanted to fix that. I wouldn't want to give my musician a gift that didn't even have the lines right. So I worked on editing that to add the 5th line. I added it one time to the top like I did here. Another time I added it to the bottom. I'll show you how I make those wavy lines. Then I switched out the treble clef to make it a bass clef for the cellist. And then I switched it out to add the alto clef for the violist. And then I made a piano score for the pianists. Pianists read both treble and bass. And then I thought, oh, I'll add some swirls to the end. I did this before in a project that I made of my for a frame for my granddaughter's picture playing the violin, and I added notes and score lines. I added the tune Twinkle Twinkle Little Star because that's what the beginning violinists learn, and added the title and mats and all that. So these are the kinds of things that we can do and Make the Cut to customize a design. And this is the one that Tammy wanted to get rid of this first half because it doesn't apply to cellists, and she wanted the second half only. So I used my Make the Cut tools to change it to this, but I still didn't like this sharp there. So I got rid of that, and I just copied the first half and added to the next. So again, customizing. Then I noticed, well, I've got more work to do on this because this bass clef is totally in the wrong place. So, but the nice thing about Make the Cut is we can fix these designs, and you see any other designs that you'd like to fix, you can do that. So that's what I'm going to talk about here. I'm not going to show you all the ins and outs of creating these files, but I did want to give you an idea of why would somebody want to edit, and how do you do that in Make the Cut, as it's my preferred editing software. So we'll go here, and we'll start with, this was the original design from the internet, and I added a line, and I decided it might be better to put it right here, but I could have put it up here just as easily. And I'm going to show you how I made that line using the editing tools. So, because that's really what this is all about, is knowing how to use the editing tools. So first I'm going to click on this to select it and type 4 to zoom in on it and 3 to center in on it. So I'm very close to the design. I can edit better. The first tool I want to use is the Bezier Draw tool. To get to the editing tools, you click on the figure 8 up in the left corner of the Make the Cut screen. And that opens up all of the editing tools, and they're hidden because they didn't want beginners to be terrified at all these icons and all these tools. Once you learn how to use the software, and then you get to the place where you really need to be able to change some things to fit your needs, then you can use these editing tools. If you don't want them, you click them and put them away. You could type the letter W, it'll open it, or you could type F1 for this tool, F2, F3, F4, F5, so on. These there's shortcut keys. So the first one I'm going to show you is this Bezier draw. When I draw, I usually use a Bezier draw because it allows me room to bend the lines after I've drawn. I don't like using the pencil tool, and I'll show you why on this blank screen here. If I use the pencil tool, I have to be pretty good with my mouse to do anything because it's so wiggly. I can change to, this is a fat path, I can change to a thin path. I can change smoothing to increase the smoothing. That's smooth, believe it or not. And if I reduce the smoothing, it picks up every jerk of my hand, and I'm not very good at that. Precision increased just makes it very precise, but yeah, I would rather have no precision and a lot of smoothing when I draw, so that my drawing can be pretty and not jaggedy like these. So that's an option. If you want to force the end lines to join, you can click on Force Closed as you draw, and when you you press the mouse and drag, and then when you release it, it will automatically join the endpoint to the beginning if you have Force Close. Super Smooth is really what I need to give me a nice smooth line. But I really like having all of these options for drawing. But even with all of those, I still prefer the Bezier Draw tool, and I'll show you why as I go back to my music stuff. In order to get these lines similar to what I started with, what I want to do is draw over one of the lines that's already there. I'm going to back off the zoom a bit so I can kind of see more of what I'm doing here. I'm going to click on this pen nub here, and this is Bezier Draw, and I'm going to start right at the beginning, left click, and I'm not going to drag. I left click where I want the line to start, and then I right click where I want to stop, and I'm just doing straight lines that I know I can bend. So right click here gives me a point, and then to end it, but I don't want to end it. I want to left click and left click and left click, and now at the end I'll right click. So what I have is a bunch of straight lines that doesn't look too good right now, but I'm going to go up to the second arrow, it's F2, which is node editing, and now I'm going to edit the line that I made by clicking about in the center and just pushing up, and then sliding as I need to left or right to make it line up with the original. So this is node editing. It's simple. Nobody needs to be afraid of it. Left click and drag to right where I want it to be. This big long one, again, right about in the middle, we'll bring it back down, but if it's not perfect, I can slide it one way or another. And then I have one little remnant left here. And after I get it sort of the way I want, this is where more of the node editing comes in. I'm going to select the top selection arrow again. I'm going to find that line that I just made, I think. I'm going to hide this by hiding that icon on the right toolbar. And what I want to do is move this line down and inspect it to see if it's nice and smooth. Ooh, I don't see any jerks in it, which is kind of nice. But if I did have any bumps in it, which can happen, I can click again on node editing, and I can check these points here by clicking on it. That selects it. And then if I want to adjust the angle of that line, I could do this with the handle that's there. I can click at the end of a point, select a line to make it green, then right click on that point, and I have the option to smooth the node, delete the node, break the node. So mostly I use a delete node. If I delete a node, it's going to remove the endpoint here, and you notice it changed the shape of the line a little bit, but it made it smoother. Then I could move it again if I want. Deleting nodes is the way that I get rid of bumps and bruises in my lines that I didn't intend to have. Well, this line is pretty thin compared to the other lines. So how do I make it fatter? Once I have the line in place, I can select a line, and then I can just go down to the shadow layer, or Control plus H. It's at the bottom, the fourth icon from the right. And if I give it a shadow width of 0.02, rounded and accept, then I have a nice thick line just like the originals. I use that 0.02 for shadowing fonts when they're not thick enough, when I want to fatten them up a little bit. So that gave me the fifth line that I wanted. The next thing I wanted to do was do some editing to remove the treble clef sign here. I would like to do more editing because that treble clef sign is way too large for this staff, but I'll leave that for another time. What I wanted to do next was make a base, or remove that treble clef sign so that I could make it an alto clef like this. So how did I do that? Well, I'm going to come back over to this one, and I want to get rid of this sign, extend the lines so that I can change this to another figure. There's several ways that I can do it. One way that I could do it is to click the eraser sign and hold the Control key will make this eraser go straight. And if it's inverse, it will draw a line. If it's taken off an inverse, it will erase a line. And I'm going to put it at the smallest eraser, 0.25 or 1/4 millimeter, which is very tiny. So I don't really want to get rid of a lot of stuff. I just want to make a break. So if I do this really thin and let go of it, I knew it was straight. I'm going to do that again. You know it's straight when you see these lines at the top and bottom. Try it again. It's crooked here, but as it straightens out perfectly horizontal or vertical, you get these lines here. So that's how you know if you're doing a straight line. Now when I release, it's made a break there, and you can hardly see it. But when I select it and click on split, it's now split so that I can actually delete this. And I'm going to split this line, and it didn't delete. I forgot to get rid of the original line. That's probably why. That should break too. Yep, there it is. So I have, that's one way to get rid of that line. I don't like to use that if I'm working with, trying to move this to where it's supposed to be. I'll show you another way to delete. If you click the editing tool, select it, and hit the delete, you get rid of that whole section. So that's another way to erase. Now what I need to do is extend these lines far enough. Now one reason I don't like to use the eraser is it adds lots of extra nodes, and at this point I don't want to hunt for the exact nodes. You can see the nodes on the mat if you go to this wrench on the bottom and click nodes on mat, and then if you zoom in really close you can start seeing all of those nodes that are on the lines. We don't really need to see those very often, but there's using the eraser tool creates a lot of nodes. So there's another way that I use to break these lines, and I'm going to show you that right now, and that's to use Control Z to undo back to where I was and get rid of the nodes. And instead of using the eraser, what I like to do is use the knife tool. And the knife tool, when you use it, will create nice clean lines, but what it does is it breaks apart. So I'm just going to left click, drag, and right click, and it opens up everything, no longer closed paths, and allows me to select everything on this side of the line, and now I have nice clean lines, clean cut, so that if I want to, I can click the node editing tool, click on the line, and click on the endpoint and drag wherever I want it to go. So I can extend it nice and clean. Left click and drag. Same thing I could do here. Left click and drag it wherever I want it to be. Left click and drag. And you can adjust the endpoints where you want. I'm not going to do them all, but I want to show you how that you can also left click and then right click and join to the closest node like that, which makes a point, and I don't want to do that, so I'm going to Control Z undo, left click, right click, and join to closest node with a line. Now I got a straight line there. It's going at an angle if I want it straight. If I move the bottom, it will go straight. So now I have a nice straight line, nice closed line. Don't have to worry about flaws in my drawing. And likewise, left click here, right click, join with a line, and I can adjust that line. Another way to do that is to left click here, right click, join with a line, and then I'm going to take that line here, just select it with my mouse, but I'm going to use my left arrow key and hold Control to move fast, and then I can keep it exactly at the right height. If I let go of the Control key, I can get fine adjustments. With the Control key down, I can get big adjustments. I really like that option because then I don't have to guess, am I keeping my line straight or am I making crooked? So I'll show you one more time. Left click, right click, join with a line, select a line, hold the Control and left. I got to select it first to make it selected, and now I'm going to use my left arrow key, I think. Not working. And hold the Control key and use my left arrow. You have to make sure it turns red in order for to it goes green. Use your arrow key and just tap it to move it in place. So that's those are the node editing tools that I use all the time. Just, you know, if I want to make it my own, that's the tool that I use. So now I have 4 really nice lines. I can go to my text and fonts, go to a free font called Musical Symbols, and now I can get that alto clef that I wanted. Double click. Oh, you have to get out of node mode, click on the selection arrow, and then you can select. And now I've got my alto clef ready to put in position. I probably should have to resize it. So I'm going to zoom out now so I can see it the actual size. And I can get my other line in here, extra line that I made. Oh, that was my original. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't need 6. Only need 5 lines. So now I have an alto clef line, and I can do the same thing to get my bass clef. Again, this one lost its thickness, so do the shadow. It remembers my last setting. Now I have a new clef with 5 lines. I'm going to resize it so it fits on there. Then I can select it all and weld. Welding's at the bottom and the middle. Oh, I made a mistake. Now, if you make a mistake, you can undo, but I'll show you how I use the eraser with that. 4-3, that zooms in, and then with it, you see how ugly that is? I see my original line is in there. And I could cut it, or I can use my eraser. And this is the kind of thing that I use my eraser for. Make it a little bit bigger, maybe a point, maybe a 1 millimeter. Hold the left key to keep my eraser straight. Then I can cut it off and make it smooth, straight across. But there's another way to use this tool, and you click on inverse eraser and it'll actually draw in little pieces that you are missing. So you have regular eraser and you have inverse eraser, and it can work on little tiny places that you need to edit. So that's one. So we've covered now the node editing, the draw freehand, the Bezier draw. We have the this is basic shapes. And I'm going to use the square here. It shows you recently used, so it's nice and quick. If I don't like the way this ends here, well, for example, when I wanted to join the top and the bottom, I needed to have a line there. So one way that I use to draw thickened lines, so let's say I would like to have some bar lines in here. I can click on my square and drag and release to make it however big I want. And then once I have that drawn, I click on the selection tool, click on the shape, which is the square. I'm going to send it to its own layer first. And I'm zoomed in too far, so I can't see what I really have selected. I want just that square. I can make it thin by dragging, but it's not quite thin enough. I need it to be 0.05 and enter. So now it's nice and thin. So I can just drag it across my bar line right where I want it. Control, Shift, drag. makes a duplicate as long as I have it in the right place. So I'm going to send it to the top. Select it and maybe drag it to the end. Again, when you are customizing, it's all your own call, however you want to do it. So that's how I use the basic shapes tool. There's a lot of different shapes in there, and I use basic shapes a lot for a lot of different things. The next tool I thought I'd show you would be, well, the measuring tool. If we ever need to measure, we'd left click and right click, and at the top of the screen you'll see length. I'll show you right here up in this area. When I left click here and I want to know how far it is from here to here, it tells me length and the angle, and that's how I can measure things in my projects. The swirls is a lot of fun, and you saw some of my examples how I use the swirl. If I wanted to add a swirl onto these little tails, I click on the swirl icon, and then I can tell it how many swirls around I want and how fast I want it to expand, what the radius is, and I can do a closed path or I can do a fat path. So I'm going to just do a half a turn on this because I don't want a real tight swirl. I'm going to left click and just drag out till I get a swirl and release. Now it's kind of backwards, so if I select it, I can flip it, mirror it, and when I left click it, once I get the rotation handles, then I can move it into place. And then I can edit it really easy using my node editing tools. So if I wanted it to go that way, I've got it. Now I could do like I did and add a shadow, but we have another option here, and that is to do the same thing with a fat path. A fat path will create a line for me of the fatness that I need, and I think I need a width. I'll leave it at 3 millimeters and see. So if I'd left click here and draw, oh, that's a little bit too much. So I'm going to delete that. Maybe I'll make it 1 millimeter. And left click, drag, it's a little better, and release. Now I'm going to do the selection tool, and I need it to flip, mirror, and then I'm going to rotate it to the direction that I need it to be. That's a little fatter than this, so I might even want to change that to half a millimeter, 0.05, enter, left click, get to see this a lot, left click and drag, release, selection, mirror and flip, and then rotate. Now if I want, I can click it again to get the resizing handles, and I can make it bigger. Then I can add circles onto it if I want to give me a ball shape, and that's how I kind of made the flourishes. I just duplicated these, left click and control and shift and drag to get another, and another, and another. If you wanted to do it that way, you could make them all different lengths, but that's the idea here. Then I'll just show you a little bit with the node editing here. These are really ugly nodes. They're kind of misshapen from the trace. If I want to change those any, it really helps to zoom in. I'll type 4 and 3 to zoom to 300. You see they're really kind of ugly, and I'm not going to right now work on them to fix them perfectly for you, but you see how here it kind of curves and I would like the note to end here. So I'm going to double click to add a node. And you know that I've added a node now because the line's shorter. And when I add a node, it's supposed to be shorter, double click. Then I should be able to select a part of a node and then right click. I can delete the node, makes it longer, too long. If I would like to just, now you see I can select a small portion and I can move that node so that it's more square. I can move these. Usually what I like to do is right click and convert to a line. So it's straight, but a straight line I know I can bend, and I can bend it smoother than it was before. Like this, I don't need a curve here. So I left click, right click, and convert to a line. It made it straighter there. Now when I get a straight line and select it, I can drag it to move it to where it needs to be. Now it helps when you're tracing to trace a larger picture, but if you don't have a larger picture, then it's very helpful to be able to edit your lines. It takes a little more time, but when you're editing, you can also go to outline. And I would like to get rid of that whole thing, so I selected it and deleted it, left click and drag. And then I can use this tool here. When you use a pen tool or pencil, you can left click and right click to close it up. I'll convert it to a line so I can bend it the way I want. So left click to select and right click to convert to line, so you can see that it's straight. And then up here, I'm going to delete the node. Move it up, and now just draw in another line here. So you can be very picky if you want to be. Right here, I would like to get rid of this node here to make it not bump. I talked about that earlier. Right click, delete node, and it made it straighter. Left click, right click, delete node, and now I have a nice straight line. So when I go back to fill outline, I have a better looking note that stays within the boundaries. I'd probably click that, right click, and delete a node. So you get the idea. You can make designs as precise as you would like. It's up to you. When you're zoomed out, you don't see all those little discrepancies, but I like to zoom in to know that what I'm doing is really what I want it to be. So if you get it the way you like it, again, you can select it all, and you can weld, and then you have a single shape. There's bumps in the lines like there are here. Again, I use a node editing to clean that up. So do you have any questions about any of these tools? I think I showed you all of them except this one, which is create a star or a polygon. When you open this, you can select star and the number of corners. I got 5 in there. If I delete that, I can also choose polygon and say I want 5 corners, and it'll make a polygon. So those are all of the editing tools. We call this the node editing toolbar to allow you to do very fine detailed work to customize whatever you want, however you want.